The last page of our review is some mixed practice where we can focus on multiple choice strategies so we can utilize um, the idea that we have choices and not just free response on our final exam. So the two strategies that we're going to look at is guess and check, where we look at our choices and we use those to determine our answer rather than solving the question being asked. And the other one is to eliminate choices based on, the characteristics that we see and rule out choices to, instead of having a 1 in 4 chance, having maybe a 50-50 chance. Okay, so this first one is factor the expression. So let's say on the test you are blanking out, you cannot remember how to factor, but you do remember how to multiply. And you can either do the box method or do the FOIL method to multiply our trinomials. So like if I just started multiplying here, I would get x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 12. And that's x squared plus 7x plus 12. So it's very similar to what we have here. And I should have probably looked right away that I have a negative. So I need to have at least one negative in here. And actually, because I want this to be a positive 12, it's probably going to be this one with the negative times the negative. And let me show you with the box method as well, just because some of you might prefer that. So if I take my x minus 3 and my x minus 4, that's x squared minus 4x minus 3x plus 12. And I can see that this is going to be my answer because I get minus 7 for my x term and positive 12 for my constant. The same thing can work when we're solving equations. Just remember that if I'm given two choices, that they both have to satisfy this. So what this might look like if I wasn't familiar or forgot how to factor, like I said, you're blanking out. Don't leave it blank and don't just guess. Use what you know. So I know that this is going to be 3 times something squared plus 6 times something, and we're hoping it's equal to 0. Well, I can plug in this 2 right here and put that into my calculator. I am going to end up with 12 plus 12 or 24, which does not equal 0. So I know that this is not one of my choices. And then I could plug in here 3 times something squared plus 6 times something. Again, we're hoping it's going to equal 0. This time I'm going to plug in negative 2. And the reason I didn't plug in the 0 over here is once the 2 didn't work, then this is not going to be one of my choices. So I only plug in the second choice if the first one worked. And so if I plug this one in, I am going to get 0. This is going to be positive 12 here, because this is positive 4 times 3 is positive 12. And this is negative 12. Again, you could put this whole thing in your calculator. It's going to come out to be 0. So this one worked, which means I want to test my other point. So 3 times something squared plus 6 times something we hope equals 0. This time what we're plugging in is 0. And we end up with this being 0 and this being 0, and 0 plus 0, of course, is 0. So these two both worked, so this would be my answer. Of course, we can do it like we did in one of my previous videos where we factor out the greatest common factor and set our factors equal to 0. But I'm just showing you some other options so that you know that you have some fallbacks if you are getting stuck on the test. A point about solving systems of equations. Remember that this is your x, this is your y, and you have to plug it in. It has to work in both equations in order for it to be a solution. So you would go ahead and plug the x in for the x of both equations and the y in for y, and see if you get the same, see if you get true statements for both equations. And I'm just going to scoot down here for our last one here where we're going to focus on eliminating choices. So most students, when they see a quadratic that they need to graph, they can look at that a value and know right away that our A value is -1, and then that's going to tell us that our U shape is going to open down, which means I can eliminate these two choices right away. Now, after this, some of you may know and recognize from your yellow sheet, or just you remember, but our C term is our y-intercept. So that would help us further rule out choices. But even if you didn't and you were stuck, you at least have only two choices that you're thinking of. But I know that -1 is my y-intercept, so I can look at my graph and see that it's hitting down here. So it looks like it's going to be this graph A, but just to make sure, yes, I can see that it's hitting at a positive point here, and it needs to be negative. So this is my choice for 37. You could also calculate what the vertex is, and that could be helpful as well, but it's not needed if you know that the C value is your y-intercept.